So it's been quite a few months since I uploaded my TikTok response video, and I thought that I got over it, so I decided that it would be a good idea to yet again go into the dark recesses of TikTok. And believe me when I say that I have seen some things that I did not want to see, things that I did not expect to see. But fortunately for you guys, I've saved some of those things. And so we're going to go through them now together. And so buckle up, because the first video that we have is a perfect example of the Oedipus complex in action.
Starting a new trend. It's called the Better Than a Calf Challenge. So if you're a calf, duet this. See if you're faster than me.
I did say that I'd seen some things, so don't say that I didn't warn you. So with this one, it starts with this little caption that says, "For vegans, be an ethical omnivore." So be a walking paradox. You can tell straight away this is going to be an interesting video. And the caption says, "Respect. You do your thing and I'll do mine." Yes, the cornerstone to any great morally just society where anyone is allowed to do whatever they want and demand respect for the things that they do, regardless of whether or not there's a victim involved.
So to all the vegans who keep calling me a murderer, I think you have bigger problems in the agricultural industry than me and how I manage these cows.
That's a classic argument right there, isn't it? When animal farmers go, "Why are you pointing the finger at me when someone else does it so much worse than I do it?" Ultimately, when it boils down to it, it doesn't matter if someone else does it worse. That doesn't by default make what you do justifiable just because other farmers do things that you don't do. I mean, for example, if someone stabbed someone one time and you said, "Hang on a minute, you just stabbed someone." And they go, "Well, hang on a minute. That person over there stabbed that person 5 times, so I think you have bigger problems to worry about." We go, "Well, yeah, of course, being stabbed 5 times is worse than being stabbed once." But that doesn't make being stabbed once justifiable. And so just because we could look around the world and see cows who are being farmed differently and potentially worse than this farmer farms his cows, doesn't make what this farmer does automatically justifiable just because it's worse somewhere else.
By the way, if you put all ranchers out of business tomorrow, all the cows they have are now a liability, not an asset. So what do you think that means for them? Think about that next time you start trying to put a rancher down, especially one that loves his cows.
Yes, that's right, everyone. Have a good think about that, because the logic is that we have to keep killing these animals, because if we stop killing these animals, we'll have to kill these animals, which would be really terrible, because of course that would mean that we're so against killing these animals. You see, it's a little bit paradoxical, and of course there's a very simple solution to this problem, which is stop breeding and buying more of these animals. If we stop the breeding and the purchasing of them, well, then we wouldn't have this issue to begin with. And also at the end of the video, the farmer says that he loves his cows, which obviously means that he would never do anything bad to them, right? "Oh, I love these cows so much. But if you stop purchasing them and paying for them to be killed, then they'll become a liability, and then I'll have to kill them." Oh, isn't love just so beautiful? And so here's another part of the solution. So stop breeding and stop buying these animals. We stop the problem into the future. And with the cows that you have now, well, why don't you turn your farm into a sanctuary and do what Rowdy Girl Sanctuary did, which is where they took the cows that they had and then they just let them live out their life in a sanctuary. And then they didn't send them to slaughter. And they didn't keep perpetuating the very industry that needlessly takes the lives of sentient beings. So there's a really succinct and well-rounded solution that bypasses the very problems that this farmer is claiming we have to keep killing animals to try and avoid. And just stop being so disingenuous. I mean, of course, not all ranchers are going to go out of business tomorrow. You're using an unrealistic and hypothetical situation to try and leverage people into doing something that just doesn't make sense on any single level.
I know you real, but I'm realer. Certified whitetail big buck killer. Yeah, I kill that buck.
Let's play a game. It's called Spot the Guy Who's Trying to Overcompensate for Something, because this is just so ridiculous. This is 2020, need I remind you, and we humans like to position ourselves as being the pinnacle of evolution, and yet what that means is people hiding out in camouflaged huts with high-powered rifles and scopes, waiting for an unsuspecting and defenseless animal to walk across their field of view so they can needlessly and callously shoot them and kill them, and then make videos for TikTok where they try and position themselves as being these kind of tough guys. Well, ultimately, it's just so sad and really disappointing. This is the state of humanity in 2020, and ultimately, It's just really pathetic.
We feed our calves a gallon of milk a day. But cows like this will produce about 25 gallons a day. Or that. We don't have enough calves to milk that. Come on!
So it's Huey Be Cool from the first video that I uploaded, and he's got some more interesting ideas. And this one here is a good starting point, because Huey, why is it that dairy cows produce so much milk? And why is it that their udders are so large? Huey, you don't tell the full story, do you? Because obviously the reason is, and you know this just as well as I do, is because we've selectively bred dairy cows to produce excessive amounts of milk. And not only have we selectively bred them, but we also feed them and farm them in a way to maximize their milk production as well. I mean, it's a classic animal farming move to selectively breed animals and then use the fact that we've selectively bred them against them and then use it as a reason to exploit them. Oh, it's just such a coincidence. These dairy cows produce so much milk, more milk than the calves can drink. I guess we'll have to keep forcibly impregnating them. I guess we'll have to keep taking their calves away from them. And I guess we'll have to keep taking their milk from them because they produce all of this milk so coincidentally. Huey, it's not altruistic to exploit an animal because you selectively bred them in such a way that facilitates and maximizes the way that you want to exploit them. And it is so disrespectful and immoral to do these things to animals and then use the things that we've done to them against their will, against them, to further try and perpetuate the reason that we exploit them in the first place. Because there'll be people that see this TikTok who will then go, well, it's ethical for me to drink milk because the cows produce so much of it. But what they don't realize is the reason that they produce so much is because we exploited them in the first place to make them produce this much.
Cows have natural heat roughly every 21 days. So that means that roughly every 21 days, cows are looking to be bred by a bull. We don't have bulls, so we AI them.
So just for clarification, because a cow has a biological clock, that therefore makes it justifiable for you, Huey, to forcibly penetrate them yourself and then take their babies away from them and exploit them for the secretions that they produce. Just want some clarification, because that's fundamentally what you're saying. You're saying, oh, because these cows have a biological function, which means that they're more receptive to mating with their own species, I am now allowed to go and take semen from a bull and then forcibly penetrate these cows myself and take their babies away from them and do all the things that I do to them, including selling them to be slaughtered. And the foundation for that is because cows have an inherent biological clock which makes them more receptive to mating with their own species. And Huey, just as you did with the selective breeding argument, you've used something that's out of their control against them as a reason for you to be able to personally exploit them. That's of course completely immoral and outrageous. And look, if you want to make an appeal to nature with this argument, well, cows of course also have a natural maternal instinct as well. They want to raise their own children, as they have done for millennia. And so if you really cared about their natural instincts and wants, which of course you clearly don't, well then you wouldn't take their babies away from them. These animals of course naturally want to live a long life. They don't want to have a knife pulled across their throat. But of course you discount that urge and that biological incentive as well, because ultimately that doesn't help you maximize the profits that you can make from exploiting them. Is it not coincidental that you use these things against these cows when it suits your purpose of wanting to make money from them? But when it doesn't suit that purpose, you coincidentally and conveniently ignore what the cow really wants. So what we have in this TikTok is a vet who works exclusively on pig farms. And so for clarification, what that means is that the job of this vet is to keep these pigs alive just long enough so they can make it to the slaughterhouse and have a knife pulled across their throat.
So this page has invited all sorts of comments. Great comments that are really supportive, and then some comments that are honestly a little bit hard for me to read, and that is okay. In fact, it's great. I invite comments. One thing that you will not see me doing is getting in a lot of fights with people in the comments, and that is intentional. Instead, I am just going to keep posting videos. And in video after video after video, if you look closely at the pigs, what you will see is pigs that have their needs met, that are well cared for, and are content. And hopefully, if you watch enough of these videos, it will help build your confidence that the producers that I work with through the Pipestone system and through Pipestone Veterinary Services are good farmers, they're good people, and they do a good job raising pigs. And you can trust them to be the ones to help create a stable food supply for you, for your community, for the United States, and for the world. So please keep on commenting and I will keep on posting.
I mean, firstly, I think it's important to say that I'm really sorry that you're receiving hard to read comments. It must be very difficult for you. And I think you've done a very good job of putting into perspective just how much of a victim you are by filming all of the mother pigs trapped in the farrowing crates that are so small they can't turn around in them. I mean, animal farmers do this all the time. They are always trying to portray themselves as the victims, and it is just so frustrating, particularly in a case like this where she's filming these animals in cages, in crates, on metal slatted floors that they're meant to defecate and urinate through, and she's trying to portray herself as the victim and trying to portray what she does as being ethical and compassionate for these animals, for these pigs that she is clearly showing in a situation that is anything but moral and ethical. And providing animals with the basic requirements they need for survival, meeting their needs, as she puts it, is not a sign of being altruistic or compassionate. It doesn't constitute caring for these animals, because the only reason you give them what they need to survive is because you have to give them what they need to survive. You need these pigs alive, but you're not going to spend any more money or go out of your way to do anything other than keep them alive just long enough, like we said before, to get them to the slaughterhouse. And to put this point into perspective, well, bear bile farmers in Asia will give the bears what they need to survive. But of course, bear bile farming is one of the most grotesque and morally abhorrent industries that exists on this planet. Incidentally, like the pig industry, meeting their needs doesn't mean anything when the only reason you do it is to make money from them and to maximize the profits that you can make from them. You could lock any animal, human or non-human, in a cage and give them food and water and keep them alive, but that wouldn't make locking these animals, human or non-human, in a cage ethically justified. I mean, the fact that that even needs to be stated just shows how ingrained exploiting animals has become. The fact that we need to state that that doesn't make it compassionate. I mean, isn't that just an indictment of our mentality towards the animals that we cause suffering and harm to? And the vet also says that the animals are content. Well, you are filming them sleeping, which isn't particularly very genuine of you, because of course you also cut the tails off these piglets and cut their teeth out. And why do you do that? Well, the reason you do that is because these pigs will bite each other and cannibalize because you keep them locked in concrete pens where they suffer from extreme boredom and frustration. Now, that doesn't sound like a particularly content animal to me. And of course, there's plenty of footage of mother pigs endlessly biting on the bars of the farrowing crates. And again, that points to the fact that these animals are, of course, not content with you exploiting them.
Do you know what drives me completely crazy? When people have like that one thing, so they decorate their entire house with that one theme, like everything. It's like, we get it, Karen. You really like roosters. We get it, Karen.
I mean, this is just absolutely outrageous. The dissonance in this video. This reminds me of Ed Gein, you know, the serial killer who used to kill people and then decorate his home with the remains and skins of the people that he'd killed. Well, this is something similar. Of course, these are not actually dead pigs, but this woman oversees at least tens of thousands of pigs every single year, oversees their suffering, perpetuates their suffering, and then sends them off to a slaughterhouse where they're violently killed, and then she decorates her home with memorabilia, imagery, and knickknacks of the animals that she causes so much suffering and violence to. I mean, words are actually lost on me. This is so crazy, and the cognitive dissonance runs so deep. This is a perfect example of why vets who work in the animal farming industries are to this day one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our time, because this is so crazy. She oversees the suffering of at least tens of thousands of pigs every single year, and then she decorates her home with imagery of the animals who scream in pain because of what she does and the industry she represents and supports does to them. And so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And these TikTok videos, what can you say about them? They just really are something else, aren't they? And really disturbing, to put it lightly. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're having a great month of December, and I look forward to speaking to you all in the next video.